Charlton Board of Health meeting. It's 6 o'clock. All board members are in attendance, as well as Jim Philbrook, the department head. Kind of a busy night tonight. I guess we're gonna start off on, first things first, we're gonna variance for the Patterson Dental Office. I know, Pete, you had some concerns about that,
Yes.
so, okay. I don't know if you want to tell us, bring us up to speed on it?
Sure.
Thank you for coming, by the way.
Under the plumbing code, they don't really break everyone down. They just go medical healthcare buildings, and then it's up to the plumbing inspector to determine what they need. And, because of their square footage and everything, what is required of them is a lot of things. And I've already contacted the state plumbing board of Wayne Thomas, because I also have one of these going into Sturbridge, and it's the same. The one in Sturbridge is orthodontist, this one's a dentist. And I explained everything over the phone. I emailed everything to Wayne. He said, yes, they need to apply for variance.
Okay.
So the Sturbridge one has already gone before the board, and the variance was granted to them. They're asking for a very similar situation like what this guy asked for. He's asking for one bathroom for his employees, handicap. He's asking for a bathroom for his patients. He's asking for a break room. He's asking for custodial sink. And that's basically what he's looking for. If you really read the plumbing code, he's supposed to have a shower. He's supposed to have his and her bathrooms for the staff, his and her bathrooms for the public, custodial sink, buffers, drinking fountains. And it's just, you know, the state doesn't break it down to square footage or anything.
Okay.
So he's asking just one unisex bathroom for staff, one for patients. I know the other dentist office asked for it. In order to get a variance, there needs to be two letters sent, one from the plumbing inspector, asking if he opposes it, and then one from the board of health asking if they oppose it.
Did you have a letter?
Yeah.
Did you oppose it?
Yeah.
So you're okay with it?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, just if you guys feel that they've met enough health requirements to occupy the building, I would appreciate, I think the owner would appreciate a letter from the board saying that they feel you've met enough health requirements.
I have drafted the letter to before the board.
Okay. Still gonna be two bathrooms in there. Looks like 8 seats, 8 dental chairs.
So a maximum of maybe 20 people in there at any given time?
I don't even think you'd see that.
No, I'm thinking worst case scenario,
Yeah.
10, 12.
10, 12.
So you're all right with this then?
Yeah, there's a bathroom for the public, a unisex handicap bathroom. There'll be a unisex handicap bathroom for the staff. He has his custodial sink. He has a break room. And he, part of his dentist work is each room gets a hand sink, so I'm not asking for any variance against that.
Right.
Why would a shower be part of this?
What it is they say medical healthcare building. So they don't know if you're going to be working with patients that you might need to take a shower. You might be working with maybe bloods that you would maybe spill on you. You might want to take a shower. That type of thing. They just put it in as catch.
Willie, got any discussion?
No, looks good, man. Looks good.
John, you have any discussion?
I don't have any objection based on what I'm seeing here.
Is this located? I respect Peter's decision, and if he's for it, I think, I'm okay with it, it's up to the board, but I don't see anything wrong. It could be a brand new building, brand new handicap accessible, bathroom, so there's plenty of sinks.
We've always worked with you, Pete. I mean, I know you do multiple towns, and if anybody knows, you do, so I'm good with it. If you're good with it, I'm good with it, no problem whatsoever.
Like I said, the other board, they went in January before the board, and with my letter, their Board of Health letter, explaining what they're doing, state giving the variance.
So,
Oh,
You'll get a letter out.
The letter's there, if you vote on it, Matt can sign it, we'll notarize it, and then copy it and send it out. We'll give it to Pete tomorrow, and he can bring it forward.
Make a motion,
accept this plan.
we go with this point.
So it's gonna be, we accept the motion for the plan at 321 Main Street, is that accurate?
We put, I think the letter we put Dr. Lee, dental
That should be
office.
Worcester Road.
Yeah, it's not, addressed. So we, in the letter, it reflects, I think it's underneath that paperwork, where John may have it.
Okay, well, we'll put it this
Same
way,
address.
for the Patterson Dental Project.
Yes.
Okay, we'll make a motion for the dental Patterson.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it's no problem, Pete. If you have that draft, I'll sign it right now, and
It's right there.
There were a bunch of copies in there, Jim. It looks like there's 4 or 5 that were in
We wanted,
here.
yeah, we wanted, all the board members to
Yeah.
see it, maybe Pete, but if you want to sign one, we'll keep it as the original, and we'll have it, Andrea can notarize it in the morning.
Yeah, I don't need to take it tonight.
okay.
We've got
I'm sure
5
Addison
copies.
wants to come in tomorrow probably, pick up his copy. I'll have my draft done tomorrow, and I'll give you guys a copy of it for your record,
Okay.
showing that I supported it. And we can go from there.
No, there's no problem here.
Notarize that.
Oh, do we have to notarize this? You
I
witnessed it.
witnessed it,
Very good.
and I think that, it's on the record, we'll just for record, it's a little bit, holds a little more if it's, and Andrew's notarized now, she's dying to use her stamp.
So I gotta come back in anyway, so.
Okay, great. Great, I'll put some-
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and explaining that for us.
It'd be nice to have a consensus on this time.
Yeah?
Now we need some people to replace hair.
Yeah. Don't be mean now.
I thought he was talking about me.
Yeah.
Pete, are these your plans?
No, those are
Those are what
Those
you
stay
guys
here.
are gonna keep.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I know we got some guys out in the hall. We can do the signing of the COC for the septic system. I'm gonna hold off on that, and I'm gonna jump ahead to the private well regulations. I don't know if we wanna get some of those guys out in the hall, though. If they need a minute, we can do something else.
He's all set to talk about if you guys want to come in.
So, gentlemen, so basically what we have, you guys wanna grab a chair or whatever? Front row, side row, wherever you'd like. So basically, what we have going on is the Board of Health has its regulations that we've been using for the process of decommissioning wells, private water wells in the town of Charlton. We had some discussion about it a few years ago, and at that time, bentonite was okay to be put in the wells. And after some education, some discussion, we decided that it's not really a good idea for this town to put the bentonite in the wells, so we got rid of that. But we did talk about filling those wells up from the bottom up with concrete. And then they cut the casing about 4 feet down below grade, and then they put a concrete slab over the top of that. So, recently, there was a ACL.
Yeah, that's what I gave to you. There was an ACO between Casella,
Yeah.
DEP, Howard South.
So it's a administrative consent order. And that was the agreement up on the H Foot Road, Berry Corner Road, Eleanor Circle, water line, proposed water line that's in the works. In that paperwork talks about the decommissioning of, at this point, it's 80 wells or so,
80, yeah.
at approximately 80 wells. If you read the language in this ACO, they were requesting filling it with pea stone for the majority of the,
Yeah, it's right here, Matt, for you.
yeah, they're gonna fill it with pea stone for the majority of the well, and then approximately 20 feet down, they were gonna throw some concrete, and then I believe they were still gonna cut off the last 4 feet and cap it. But the pea stone doesn't meet what this board has been requiring and what the other ones have been doing. So it was kind of a, we caught it, and we talked about it. Well, there's been pros and cons on this, so I'm not a well decommissioning expert. I know that these guys, you do wells, right? That's what you do for a living, both of you. I know, Chris, you've been involved in decommissioning of several public water supplies that have not used the concrete. So it really comes down to this board making a decision if we're gonna allow the pea stone, or if we're gonna mandate that it goes with concrete. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, this whole ACO has been approved by the state. It was effort between the town of Charlton, the town of Southbridge, and the state. And this ACO has the pea stone in there. It's accepted by the state, and the state does not have a problem with that. Okay? It doesn't meet the town of Charlton regs, but the state has absolutely no problem with that. I spent hours doing an investigation. I spoke with Mary Jude Bigsley today about it, and she doesn't see a problem having the pea stone whatsoever. For us, the real decision for us, or the big concern that I have, is that I'd like everybody on this board to take in mind, is the concrete is more expensive than the pea stone. Okay, so when they put this ACO together, they had line items, you know, dig the street, maybe ledge, all these different expenses that are gonna come up with this project. Well, one of them is well decommissioning. Well, they have a number at the well decommissioning based on pea stone and the method that they have in here. If the board does not accept this ACO and mandates that they go with concrete, we're talking big numbers in a change of cost. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in addition to what the state has. So if that happens, the town, the residents, we're probably gonna have to pay the difference on that. So it's really a financial decision. Now, this board has never put financing before public health and safety. We don't really care about the money. Public health and safety is what Board of Health are supposed to do. I don't know enough about it, so that's why we asked Steve, you, Joe, Pete, you to come in and give us your thoughts on why it's so important not to go with the pea stone, or better, why it's so important to go with the concrete. We need the education for not just this project, but for the rest of the projects. Because right behind this one, we got the Mugget Hill Loop. We've got all the people in the past that have already spent the money and have used the concrete. So I don't know if one of you guys can maybe give us an education why the concrete versus the pea stone. Flip a coin?
The problem with the pea stone is, what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a conductor between water producing zones.
what you're gonna do is you're gonna aid the spread of the pollution. Plain and simple. Any given well more than likely has more than one water producing zone. Could have 2, 3, 4, 5 even, you just don't know. When you have one of those, or multiple ones that are contaminated, and you allow that water to cross-contaminate between, you know, you've got a bad zone here, but a good zone here, what you're doing is you're enabling that bad water to travel, to contaminate a good zone. So effectively what you're doing is you're potentially polluting somebody's well down the street that right now doesn't have a problem. So, you know, when it comes down to money, I mean, where's this thing gonna end? You know what I mean? You're not doing anybody any favors by allowing them to do that. And I can't believe that the state will go for that. I really can't. I'd have to talk to the people that the drillers deal with, that you know, the DEP has many different departments. And the guys that we deal with, that handle the drillers, I'd like to talk to them and see what their thoughts are, because I don't believe it's gonna be the same as what you're getting from, you know, from information. I just don't.
Yeah, but that's right from Monty Sewer himself. That's agreed, as you talked to Mary Jo Pigsley, that's from the top. That's not
This
something.
ACO.
Yeah, that's agreed, you know. And I think Chris was part of it, that may have something, that's not a decision that was ill-made, that was a decision that.
I don't
came
care
from
if
the
God
top.
said that it was okay, okay? If I was a taxpayer and I lived down the street and I had a well that was good, and you guys are gonna come on and fill all these wells that are known to be bad with pea stone, I'd be out of my mind. And I'm gonna tell you right now, there's gonna be trouble. There's gonna be a lot of trouble over it. There's gonna be a lot of finger pointing. Who allowed this to happen? I don't wanna be the guy.
I think most of on H-Foot Road, all the wells will be, no one is keeping a well.
I'm not talking about H-Foot Road.
Yeah.
I'm talking about down, Schoolhouse Road, I'm talking about up over, you know, down around Sampson Road, Sawmill Circle, I mean, the sky's the limit over here, and it potentially can travel. And what you guys are doing is you're helping it to travel by doing this. Plain
I
and
can
simple.
say that.
You know?
What you gotta do is you gotta pull a pump,
You gotta
do it from the bottom up,
To the top.
That's
and
it.
get rid of that problem. This ain't fixing it, that's
No.
making a reservoir
What's
to make
it?
it go.
I abandoned 30 or 35 wells for ExxonMobil over around Stafford Street and over that, the first string of abandonments that they did over there. And they were adamant, and they had engineers on site to make sure that this was done properly, and it was done with neat cement. That's all they wanted, neat cement and nothing but. And I can understand their concern. They wanted to stop it from moving, you know, do what they can to stop it from traveling.
Jim, I know you were involved in some decommissioning up at Upland condos.
Yep,
The state decommissioned those.
yeah, the state decommissioned 3 wells,
How did they do it?
concrete from top to
From the bottom up?
bottom up. Yeah.
Where was this?
Behind the,
Upland
behind
Farms.
Slim's.
They were contaminated with salt from the Mass Pipe,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Mass Pipe decommissioned 3 wells, so they had.
Well, that's the way, usually that's the way Mass Highway wants them done. Because I've done some for Mass Highway.
Well, he came in and got our decommissioning regulations, and that's what he followed, so.
Yeah.
And I was on site to witness it. They
Mhm.
run a hose down to the bottom and up, but, you know, that's the way the state does them all, I guess.
Only one time have I ever done one with pea stone, and where it was actually a suggestion of mine. And what happened was, there was 3 wells, I believe it was, on a site in Sturbridge. And, there were, well, actually 4, but there were 3 in close proximity, but we didn't know about one of them. One of them, somebody had cut off and just buried, and it was left, you know, it really wasn't plugged properly and whatever. But how we found it was we hydrofracked one of the other wells, and we had water shooting out of the ground, you know, 30 feet away, and it's like, what's going on? You get a backhoe and start digging, and there's this well that wasn't properly abandoned. So, because those wells were connected, and it was a public water supply well that we were working on, not knowing the direction or the flow of the water, and it was my suggestion at that time to fill those 2 that were gonna get abandoned with with pea stone up to the, near the surface. The bedrock was real close there. And just plug the top with cement, just so that you didn't, because potentially what you could do, if you plugged it from the bottom to the top, is you could stop all the water going into that one good well that you're gonna keep. So,
Which-
in an attempt to not do that, because it is a public water supply well, and it's a big deal, to go through all the hoops and the hurdles to replace it, if it did shut the water off, they were okay with that, and that's the way it was done. But only in certain, and there was no contamination there. It was just a matter of, these wells are offline, they don't want, the state doesn't want these wells being unused to sit there. Either use them or plug them, that's their philosophy, so.
So that was done for the opposite reason of this, because the same effect, it's gonna stop the water from this well getting to the next one.
Correct.
In that
So we
case, you didn't want that to
stop the water,
happen,
correct, and that was
because
why-
it wasn't
And
contaminated.
that was my suggestion to do that, and the engineer liked the idea, and he took it to the DEP, and they went with it, and they were okay with it, but that's the only time that I ever saw it that was, that there was any positive to come from it.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree with, 100% what Steve says. Anytime we work for Mass DOT or ExxonMobil, we've done a bunch, same thing, heat cement. They stay away from the pea stone. Myself, I've done one with pea stone. We actually couldn't fill it with concrete. It would not take it, so we put some in to get above that, and then we filled the last couple hundred feet with cement to seal it up. But we pumped in like 15 yards of concrete, and we could not, it would not fill up.
Yeah.
It could not fill the hole, so we had to, we did that, got above that, and then we filled the rest
But
with
it's an
cement.
isolated.
Right.
Right,
How much is too much? I mean,
right.
Well,
couple
yeah.
truckloads.
You get in a jam and you can't fill the
Yeah.
hole, I mean,
You could have tried it, $200-something a yard for cement,
Yeah, so that's what we're up against. Chris, I know you've done, some decommissioning
Sure.
projects, so can you weigh in on, if you want?
Yeah, obviously, I'm just an engineer, I'm not a, welder, but I would say there's, three things that we're looking at here. We're looking at the Mass DEP private well guidelines, you're looking at your bylaws, and you're also looking at the guidelines and policies that Mass DEP has in place for public water supplies and public water systems. So, and I don't deal with freight and transport, I don't talk about contamination, traveling, that's not my area of expertise. So I can't sit here and say that this could happen, it might not happen, but in this case, I'll also tell you that you have 80 wells, and I've seen wells in people's basements, and in areas that you may not be able to use either, one, specifically one or the other practice here. You might have to use a combination of two. So having that position open, or being open to use whatever decommissioning process is going to work for that particular well, I think is the most prudent decision.
Well,
Make that way.
that's an isolated situation. I mean, there's always gonna be situations where, I had one, 2 years ago, I abandoned for that driving range down there, and the well was against a tree. It was a big tree, 100-foot tall hardwood tree. And I said, there's no way I'm gonna dig the top of that well up and pour a pad over the top of that, because I don't wanna assume the liability of that tree dying and falling on somebody at the driving range and killing them. So it's, I talked to Matt about it, and he talked with the board members, and they said, at that time, just leave it be. And, again, it's an isolated, and yet, obviously you have to bend the rules of when something like that happens, but.
Yeah. I'd like to change gears just a little bit, okay? I wanna talk about that concrete pad. So right now what we do is we cut the wells 4 feet below grade, and then, they put a concrete pad on top of them. So maybe like a 2 foot by 4 foot, 6 inches thick pad, is
I
that?
think it calls for
4 by 4.
42 or 48-inch diameter, I think is what it
Right.
says.
Okay, and it goes over the existing pipe, set it over the pipe. Does that get buried as well?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, you're familiar with that process?
I am, yes.
Okay. Can any one of you guys see the point to that. Is that a necessity, or is that something that we're doing for the sake of doing and does not need to be done?
We're doing it because it's in the regulations.
I know you're
I
doing
don't know how it got in
regulations.
there, it was adopted probably from the state's suggested guidelines. You know, I mean, this isn't, this is worded private well guidelines, and that's all it is, it's a suggested guideline.
Mhm.
There is no black and white rules on this.
Correct.
So they, you know, sent out something similar to this to every town, and every town took that and they adopted their own. You know, I wasn't there, I didn't have any input into the original set of rules that were adopted, so I mean, how that got in there, I don't know.
But you can't see any reason why that would help or hurt a situation?
No, I mean, if you filled it 95% of the way with pea stone and had 20 feet of
Concrete.
concrete on top,
Mhm.
maybe, the concrete does shrink a little bit, quite possibly, but other than that, I mean, I see no need.
I can see where it would though. One, if you filled in a hand dug surface well, stone lined,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you fill that with native material,
Mm-hmm.
because
That I
basically
see.
all it is a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
What happens is, in time, the dirt will infiltrate those stones and it will settle. So if you pour that cap over the top of it,
I'm-
it's gonna, you know, there might be a void underneath the cap, but
Mhm.
it's, you know, nobody's ever gonna get lost in it.
Yeah.
It's
I'm more talking about the artesian well with the
Right.
case.
On an artesian well, I just don't see it. On a hand dug well, I can understand.
Chris, do you see any need for that concrete on there?
No, I mean, typically what, you know, again, I go by the guidelines and policies. The plugging material shall be allowed to, you know, the casing shall be then be filled with a mixture of neat cement, 6% bentonite by weight. The plugging material should be allowed to flow out and along the sides of the casing to ensure that proper seal is established. And then the upper 4 feet just needs to be compacted.
Mhm.
And it's just to prevent anything from,
So,
yeah, it's basically that
So-
vertical migration.
John, do you have any concerns with this? I think we should remove this concrete language from our well regs, Willie.
Yes, I think so too. It's money put out there for no
It's
reason.
being spent, it's another process, it's more time, and I just don't see,
On the pad you're talking about.
On the
Right.
pad.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
so, do you have any concerns about that pad?
No, I'll defer to well experts and the engineer, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
So, can we get a motion to eliminate that pad for the well regs for the Charlton
I'll
Town?
make a motion, we eliminate the pad for any
Artesian.
artesian well. When it comes to a, you know, a hand dug well, it's a different situation.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, make a motion.
is there a second? Discussion?
No, just clarify it so we can do the next.
So, the regulation that we're discussing is specific to steel cased, they typically go at least for the first 20 feet down, wells that are being decommissioned, a 6 or an 8-inch well or larger, but not the old field stone circular ones that could be 2 to 3 to 4 feet in diameter.
What's the reason why they ain't just taking the top sleeve and yanking it out after they?
I don't know if they can
pull
even
it
get it.
If it's concrete lined, you
out? Yeah,
you know, yeah, but what do you do with the stone line ones? You know?
yeah, I mean, no, you just where they drive it to the ledge.
Oh, you're talking
Oh,
about,
the
you're
steel-
you're talking
steel?
about steel pipe. You
You
can't,
you never get it
never
out.
get it
Never
out.
get it
Once
out.
that,
Never
you
get
would
it
never
out.
get that out of there.
So-
That will not come out.
Usually you set that pipe, and if you run one rod in the bedrock and allow the cuttings to go down out the outside,
You can't
then
get it
you'll
out.
never get it out.
Never get it
Okay, I
out.
just didn't realize
Yeah,
it.
no.
We could just yank that and
Mhm.
save that.
So we had a motion on the floor to do away with the concrete pads for the artesian wells only.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that's one thing that I thought we should have addressed. That it was all for nothing.
Now, any of these wells, think they should be deeded and somehow, if we do, if it's something else got in there on their deeds and somebody else sold the house and went to somebody else.
On an abandoned one?
Yes.
Well, what's the process for an abandoned well? They all get recorded with GPS
We have to
coordinates?
do a
We have to
report.
do a report. Every well that is abandoned or drilled needs a well completion or abandonment report from the state of Massachusetts.
Within-
Or Mass
Yeah,
DEP
Within,
with,
within
sorry, with GPS coordinates of where that was,
Yep.
you know, within 30 days of completing that. You know, how it was abandoned and everything like that is all on that report, and that is linked to that address forever on
They
the
sell that
state.
house, the next people come in, they got it
They
on their
can
deed.
get a copy.
That's all part of
That's all part
that,
of that.
that's all part of that, the searchable database that the state has. Anybody here can go online and search that database, so that information is out there.
Okay, so now we come back to the question at hand. How does this board feel about concreting these things from the bottom up, or allowing this project to go with P-stone from the bottom up, and then, well, they won't do, Chris, what's the protocol on this? They're not talking bottom up, they're just gonna pour it from the top down?
Yeah, the pea stone, it's, you know, they talk about pea stone or a clean material,
Mhm.
right? And it needs to go to the bottom of the well casing. And then from the bottom of the well casing to the top needs to be filled with the upper 10 feet will be filled with a mixture of neat cement and 6% bentonite by weight, and then basically it's overflown and onto that, 4 feet below the ground surface.
So the ACO calls for bentonite as well.
Bentonite seal on the
Bentonite
top. It's a neat cement, I mean, I think it's probably specified as a neat with some bentonite in it.
Okay.
If they use strictly bentonite, it tends to dry up and create cracks, and you don't get that, you won't get the seal that they're looking for. So that's why they use a mixture. And these guys can attest to
Is
it.
that why you guys told us not to use the bentonite last time? Because it cracks?
Yeah.
That washes, it'll wash
Wash
away.
away.
You gotta move it,
We'll move in vain, it'll take it with it.
wash it right away. It's not permanent.
So with this ACO where Chris was just talking about a bentonite mixture, do you see a problem with that, or do you think that would be all right?
I don't even know why they call for the bentonite, for that couple percent in the, I mean, it's not a big deal to do it. But if you take a bentonite sample, if you will, and let it dry and see how much it contracts, when it dries, and take a neat cement sample and see how much it contracts when it dries, there's no comparison. It's like night and day. So why, I don't understand why you would wanna put this stuff, add this to the cement, because all it's gonna do is it's gonna cause it to contract more.
Cement sets up underwater,
Right.
or they pour in the ocean.
And it does contract to a certain, I mean, cement, that's a known property of cement, but that it does contract when it dries. But it's a much smaller ratio than the bentonite is. I just don't even see why they involve the bentonite in it. But it's, they're talking a coffee can full to, a couple bags of cement. I mean, it's not,
So you don't see a problem with that?
no, I mean, if that's what they want, you can do it. It's not a problem. But when, the finished product, when it dries, is gonna be hot. It's not gonna wash away.
I have a question for you guys.
Russ?
How many wells in Charlton have been decommissioned under the current regulations? Just roughly, would you
Quite a
guess?
few. We just talked about more than 40 on that last round, right? With ExxonMobil?
That was the first round
That
they
was the
did.
first round.
Somebody did the
Somebody did the
second
second round
round.
by
And
Ted's, I don't know who it was.
I don't know. Supposedly they were using, I don't know what happened there, but
That was,
I don't
that was
believe
by, that was by Ted's, and they were
well, there
down.
was some on North Side Road
Somebody
too.
did some over
I
there.
rode by there one day, there was some guys monkeying around with some bags and stuff, but there was no grout pump there, there was no,
How many, Jim, do you think decommissioned? I mean, we saying 100 or a couple hundred?
I know of the 40, but I'm not, like them, I'm not sure the other ones that, who else would be doing them on North Side Road. We didn't, we checked the 40 that were done, but the ones I've checked lately are the 3 that was done by the
I
state.
mean, how long have these regulations been in effect with the neat cement?
since
20
before,
years,
since
before the mobile thing,
before I did those ones for
Mobile.
ExxonMobil.
20 years ago.
It's about 20 years.
Say 20 years, I
Yeah.
mean, I've done,
I-
I
I'm
did
gonna say
have-
more than 50.
I'm sorry?
Your answer is more than 50.
Okay. I ask you the question because naturally, I see the rock in the hard place you guys are in right now. Naturally, you don't want to throw the cost onto the people who, first of all, this really isn't their problem to begin with. You don't want them to ultimately pay for it. And ultimately, you don't want the taxpayers to have to pay for this when it's not their problem either. Going back and saying, in this situation, we're gonna make an exception, I think you'll quickly find you could possibly wind up in the same position the town administrator is in, trying to figure out right now with the Board of Selectmen and the water betterment situations. I don't know if any of you guys know what I'm talking about with that, where the interest payments alone were not reimbursed to some people. Now, all those people are coming and saying, hey, we need to be treated fairly just like the other people, and why should we pay this cost when we don't have to? And all those people who have already come before this time period, well, now they're gonna be coming to your board and saying the same thing if you make the exception in this case. And it is it putting money before public health and safety? And I think these guys here are addressing those questions, and they're saying, you know, this is why we came up with the well regulations and not pea stone in the wells. So.
I know, this board has always, 7 years, 8 years I've been on it, we've always have tried to do what it is, not who it is, regardless. You know, so, yeah, we are in a rock and a hard spot on this right now. I will say, we're talking with, members of DEP, they don't feel that we're putting, anybody at risk. They feel that the pea stone is a viable solution and they don't have a problem with it. It's approved by them. You know, they said they weighed it heavily and there was pros and cons on both sides of this.
Wouldn't it be up to the Board of Health for health-wise?
It's up to the Board of Health.
There are no
Have our
pros.
own rates.
What's the pro?
Isn't there money in that agreement, specifically built into that agreement for unforeseen costs?
Yeah, I'm
Isn't-
sure there is.
Isn't it a potential possibility to go back into that agreement and say, sorry, the Board of Health didn't put this burden on the taxpayers or the residents? And, you know, the people who made the agreement